Hello? Master Cade. You are officially Master Cade. What's it like to be the high class now?
Honestly, dude, feels pretty baller, not gonna lie. No,
Yeah.
nothing's
taken the
changed,
gown
bro.
off?
Nothing's changed. No, it's getting pretty smelly. Haven't changed out of it since. It's been, 2 weeks now? It's getting pretty smelly.
2 weeks, and you wear the cap to bed in the shower.
That's right.
And
I don't take anything off.
You're gonna get a nasty tan line down your
No,
nose.
bro.
No, from the hat, like the angle.
Oh, yeah, the little shade.
Man, us low-life high school graduates, we can't even imagine what it's like to be Cade Barrett. Dr.
all right,
Cade
bro.
Barrett, soon to come.
Hey, never say never, baby. Never say never.
I love it. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Dude, welcome back to the Pursuit of Property podcast. We are back with a master's graduate, Dean's Medalist winner. You sat up with the president, didn't you?
I did.
You're
Guess I
practically
was
the
somewhat
president.
important. I
Yeah,
practically am. Maybe I should
Pretty
run
much
for
you own
public
Fresno
office.
State.
No, you never. Yeah, public office is too much. I'd get canceled. President of Fresno State, maybe. We'll see.
I love it. Well, dude, onus is back on me. We've got another sales topic. This is not strictly for sales, though. I just think this is something interesting that we can go over, and it's been something you and I have really struggled with, which is just the amount of meetings
Ugh.
that we both have to be in.
Yeah.
How do you feel when I say the word meeting?
I hear the word meeting and I just want to immediately vomit. That's only half joking. I think the concept of a meeting is has its purpose. It's good in its heart, but more often than not, in actual reality, a lot of meetings turn into aimless bullshit, which I think is where this sentiment comes from us, where we had to cut through the bullshit and try and figure out what actually matters. And we always joke, what could have just been an email versus a meeting?
Oh, geez, dude. A lot of meetings are email worthy. And
Absolutely.
then I feel like, I don't know if you share this sentiment with me, but I do feel as if the meetings that really can't be an email, I actually enjoy being in. I feel they
Absolutely.
are productive, and I've always struggled to fucking realize, why is it that some meetings I wake up and I resent? Other meetings I look forward to, and they give me energy, right? That's really ultimately what I wanted to talk about today is I want to figure out, as a company, how do we really dial in the meetings to make sure that none of the meetings that we're having are a waste of time? They're not pulling energy away from the team. They're not creating friction. Meetings should do the opposite. They should, really reduce friction for the rest of the productive hours.
Absolutely. I mean, meetings can be very, very helpful, but they can also be very, very hurtful, especially if you have a small team or a medium-sized team. If they feel like this meeting is aimless and has no purpose, that's only going to build resentment within your employees and decrease productivity in that way too. So I think it's trying to find the balance between what is meeting worthy and what isn't, especially with a medium-sized team like we have.
Yeah. And the other hard part too is, I don't know if you struggle with this as much as I do. Like, this transition from being an acquisitions person, a closer, the guy wholesaling the deals, to really the guy kind of watching over the people doing that, is I have this really I have this negative resentment against meetings in general because it feels like it takes my productive time away from me. And ultimately now I get paid to be in meetings. And so I can't resent them. I just need to figure out how to make them as energy giving as when I used to go on appointments or, when I used to get a new lead. So that's one of the big areas of opportunity for me is figuring out how to do that and hopefully making it energy giving to the team too.
100%. I mean, my question right off the bat too would be, I'm curious on your perspective over the past however many years, whether we were doing meetings as part of a team when we were full-time real estate agents to now where we run a medium-sized company with, I think we're up to 14, 15 team members. Where do you see meetings go wrong? What do most people do wrong with meetings?
The biggest thing is like we had on the sales team a lot of meetings that they were what I would like consider legacy meetings. It was like a meeting that used to be held by a completely different group of people when the team was a completely different team for a purpose that was completely different than what we're using it for now. And we had the wrong people. It was literally every part of it was wrong. And so I think that's where I see them go wrong most often is a lot of recurring meetings do not get audited.
They don't get audited. And the thing that pops into my head immediately is one of the biggest mistakes, if not the biggest mistake that people make with meetings is not having any structure or any sort of agenda going into the meeting. That's one of the biggest things we've learned from our consultant, Sharper, who we've been with, I think, coming up on a year, is every single type of
We're
meeting.
Over.
Are we over?
Here.
We're over now. So every single type of meeting has an agenda down to the minute on what should be covered and when. And I think when you come in as a leader or even as a participant in that meeting, knowing what's going to be covered and knowing what the expectations are coming in, they go so much smoother and actually turn productive as opposed to just winging it and flying by the seat of your pants with every single meeting you're throwing.
So I have some questions I want to go through that I want to share with people. I got this from my coach. I did not ask her permission if I could share it. I don't think there's an issue here. But these are some questions, and this is something I'm trying to get through my head. I literally today in my coaching got called out for not starting with this. And this isn't just meetings. You can use this for pretty much any recurring process, right? What is the first question, Cade, if you were to take a stab at it? What's the first question before you create a meeting or a process that you need to ask before you get started?
What's its purpose?
Seems simple enough. My issue is I never really start there. I always start with what am I going to do? But what are we trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
If that is not accurately, I guess, not only like defined but written down and reviewed, then that's like the number one thing I feel like leads to a meeting being a waste of time. So, for example, let's give some context to some of the meetings we have. We have a daily morning meeting. What is the purpose of that meeting?
We are trying to, what's the purpose / I like the way you phrased it too, digging even a little bit deeper, which is what's the end goal? What are we trying to accomplish? And for our morning meetings that we do Monday through Friday, every morning from 9 a.m. to 9:15, we're trying to accomplish continuing to build team morale and culture. That's the one time that every single team member on the team is in one single meeting for 15 minutes. The purpose and our goal is to continue to build team culture and morale.
Okay. So that meeting has a purpose. Do you love that meeting?
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. That's being completely honest. We've had discussions about that meeting too. We've asked outside coaches, investors for their perspective on this meeting. And sometimes I love it. Sometimes I don't.
Okay. So that's a question to ask yourself. I want to pivot to a different meeting. our leadership meeting that we have every week. Do you like that meeting?
I typically do enjoy that meeting. Yes.
Your one-on-one with Jason. Do you like that meeting?
Yes.
Your one-on-one with me. Just say no. I already know it's a no. Right?
Yes.
Every single meeting you need to go through and you need to wonder, why do I look forward to it or dread it? And then ask yourself, do I have a clearer picture of what I'm trying to accomplish in that meeting? Because if I'm just meeting for the sake of meeting because there was a time slot on my calendar, that, in my opinion, causes the most resentment for me.
For sure.
Okay, so what are we looking to accomplish has to be the very first question you ask. So moving forward, every time I am looking to create a new process, a new meeting, a new task that's repetitive, right? So like end of week forms, the very first question and written at the top needs to be, what am I looking to achieve? What is the desired end state? That question is paramount before we take the next step. The next step, how often and how long should that meeting be? Right? So if your goal is clearly defined, pick any meeting that you have, Cade.
Our one-on-one.
Our one-on-one. What's the... I guess we've never really written it down.
No.
What are we hoping to accomplish when you and I meet on Wednesday morning?
We have 3 high-level goals going into each of our meeting, and those 3 goals never change. It's to do a weekly review of the rentals that you and I own together, a review of our upcoming podcast, and a review of the state of our business that you and I are running and the collaboration between acquisitions and operations. How do we sync up on those 2 sides of the coin? So those are the 3 goals and the 3 outcomes that we're hoping to achieve going into every single one of our meetings.
And okay, so you went through the 3 high-level kind of general topics, right? I heard you say getting synced up on the rentals, getting synced up on the podcast, getting synced up on Pinnacle. What does that even mean?
What does that mean? You and I, outside of that meeting, do not take any time to talk about the state of our rental properties that we own. Contrary to popular belief, rental properties are more often than not mailbox money. There needs to be conversations involved, even if you have a stabilized portfolio. So it's going through who's up to date on rent, who's late on rent, are there any vacancies, are there any outstanding invoices from the property manager. Getting synced up means all of those things on the rentals.
So I would make the recommendation. I don't mean to jump in. I think my internet froze for a second. I would make the recommendation that we write it out and we say early bird investments, desired end state, right? And it is written out fully. Our desired end state is that the ball is not in our court for any of our properties. We are identifying potential issues in the next week, and we are critically solving all of those issues in this meeting, right? So like you have to get very much granular on what the desired end state is, right? And then for the podcast, it's the same type of thing. And we have it all written out. So that would be the starting point. I think every person that runs a team or has more than one person needs to look at when they're setting a meeting is like, let's define what that means and getting specific on that, right? What are we trying to do? Write it out. Then the next question we already brought up is how often and how long. Cade, if we know that you and I need to do those things for our podcast, right? Is that a daily thing, a weekly thing, a monthly thing, a quarterly thing, an annual thing?
So
How do you figure that out?
when we're talking about the podcast specifically, for years we were recording on a weekly basis. So for the podcast specifically, and we've been having our one-on-one meeting for who knows how many years now, was it needed to be weekly because each week we were having a podcast posted that we needed to make sure all of the content was ready, videos were clipped, description was ready to post onto Spotify and all the other platforms. So we each week had a podcast being posted, and each week we were filming a new podcast. So we needed to get synced up on what are we talking about? What's the outline for the podcast? Are we scheduling a guest? So that needed to happen on a weekly basis.
Exactly. So let me ask you a new thing. If your goal is to create a cohesive culture and team members that like each other and care about each other and have a sense of community, how often do you need to have that meeting?
I would argue that at maximum, you could probably make do with once a week. Now, we've seen all of the fruits that have come from having it be every day. Now, is it every day for an hour? Absolutely not. It's every day for 15 minutes. Now, do I think, again, that it needs to be every day? No, I think the max you can go is once a week, but I do see the value in having it be once a day.
I think this is what makes this conversation relevant. How many times do you and I schedule stuff on each other's calendar a week? How many times are you and I adding stuff to each other's calendar? How many times did you guess?
Probably, I don't know, 2 to 3 times a week. We're adding each other's or inviting something, adding something to the calendar 2 to 3 times a week. Maybe more.
When we're scheduling that, what's the standard duration that we typically schedule for?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. What do you think most people schedule whenever they put something on their calendar?
An hour.
Why? Why do we default to an hour? It's that whole concept that if you give yourself an hour to do it, like I'm a professional procrastinator. Yes. This is how I got through high school. If you told me do a homework assignment at night, it would take me 3 hours. If you told me, Scott, you have to wake up at 4 a.m. and it has to be done by 7, it would be done by 7. And I guarantee I wouldn't wake up at 4 a.m. So it's that whole idea of when you give yourself more time than's needed, you take more time. That's why you feel like you're in meetings all the time, because you didn't think through how much time should this take me. At the start, it's going to be a little bumpy, but if I'm organized and I come prepared, does this need to be an hour? No, it doesn't. You and I syncing up and solving a difficult issue often takes us 30 minutes or less.
Yep.
Right? But I think a lot of people miss that, and they'll put a meeting and they'll put it for an hour. Dude, this could be a 15-minute phone call. And if it's less than 15 minutes, that's when you qualify for an email. Okay?
Yeah, exactly right. There it is.
If it does not take 15 minutes of actually talking to get on the same page, it could be an email. So we need to think through, how frequently are we meeting and how long does that meeting have to be? For example, you and I have our one-on-one, and that's weekly for an hour, right? Because we've broken it up. It's about 20 minutes per section. Very often the podcast takes less than 20, and so we use the extra time saved in the Pinnacle business. Now, what about marketing, Cade? How often are we reviewing our marketing KPIs? Does it make sense to review that daily?
No.
How about weekly?
Could see the value in weekly, but not
what about monthly?
Necessarily needed. Absolutely once a month.
What about quarterly?
I think quarterly, you absolutely want to look at marketing on a quarterly basis as well.
What about annually?
Absolutely look at it on an annual basis.
Are the conversations from the week or the monthly to the quarterly to the annually, are they the same conversation?
No, they're different.
So we need a new desired end state. We need to define what's the purpose of the monthly. And Cade, what is the purpose of the monthly?
Purpose of the monthly, we have divided up our goals for our business, not only on a quarterly basis and an annual basis, but also we break that down into a monthly basis to make sure we're either on track or off track. So the desired end state, to review that once a month, is did we achieve our desired outcome for our goals for the month, or did we not? And if we did, what went well? If we didn't, what's going wrong, and what do we need to tweak for the upcoming month?
Exactly. The monthly marketing meeting is to see where there may be issues, because you can't wait a year to change an issue.
Can't even wait a quarter.
But the quarterly or the annually are used to see trends and to see ROI and to see where do we turn up the dial and where do we turn down the dial. Right? That monthly marketing meeting is defined as looking to make sure that our basic KPIs are being hit for our gross leads and our net leads. And if they aren't, to make tweaks to the process to make sure that we are not the reason it's not happening, right?
Absolutely.
But then the quarterly and the annually, we're looking and we're saying what marketing streams are working the best and how do we realign our budget to get a better ROI as a whole. So this is where the whole idea of starting with the desired end state, that what we're trying to accomplish, matters, because it helps us decide how often we need to meet and how long we need to meet. Is the annual marketing meeting going to be 30 minutes?
No.
Is it going to be greater or less than 30 minutes?
Greater.
What about the weekly stoplight report that we have to fill out? Is that 30 minutes?
Are you asking to physically fill out the report or to review the report?
To review it.
Less.
Okay. So does that have to be its own separate meeting?
No.
That could be a fucking email. Or it could be in a different meeting. Right? Yep. So this is what I'm trying to get at, is you and I do review the marketing weekly. And we review the marketing monthly. And we review the marketing quarterly and annually. But we have different desired end states. They should be written out. And the duration will change with the desired end state and the frequency. Okay. So first question. What was it?
What are we looking to accomplish? What's its purpose?
Second question.
How long and how often?
Okay. If those are in alignment, do you feel better about your willingness to attend the meeting? If those are clearly defined.
Absolutely.
Okay. You already referenced what the third question is, and you brought this up. But what do you think the third question is?
Oh, I already brought it up?
Yeah. You talked about it. It has to do with being organized.
I don't know. I was going to throw a guess at what... Well, no. Yeah, hit me.
An agenda.
Okay.
An agenda.
Yeah.
Right? How many times have you gone into a meeting with somebody and there was like nothing to talk about, and so all you did the whole time was bullshit or pick up random things and drop them off without ever solving anything? You and I have done it a million times, even in our own one-on-ones. But we just had our Align meeting with Jason, you, me, and Jason. What did we do? We followed an agenda, and what did we say? It was the best meeting we've had as the three of us.
Yep.
Does your one-on-one with Jason have an agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Does Polls have an agenda?
Yes.
Does our leadership team meeting have an agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so those are all meetings that are productive. Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. But when there's an agenda, guess what that means? When you solve everything and there's time left, do you keep meeting for the sake of meeting?
No.
When there's no agenda, but there's a time block for an hour, what do? You just keep sitting there in the meeting. Because, well, I had it blocked off until 11. I'm going to just stay in this.
I'm going to make myself feel better because I have a padded calendar. I was in this important meeting for an hour today.
I was busy, but were you productive?
Hell no.
Okay, so that's the next step. Why else would it be important to have an agenda as a manager, Cade?
If I'm a manager and I know the purpose of the meeting, we have the agenda for the meeting, we know how often and how long it's taking. I also want to know, and it would be helpful, to what are the after action item plan or the after meeting action plans. If we have the purpose, it's great to sit here and dilly dally and have a conversation, but what are the actual tangible action items that are going to come out of that meeting? That's me as a manager. Like, if we know the goal, what needs to happen after the meeting so that we don't come back a week later, a month later, a quarter later, or the next day and nothing's changed?
And how do you know if something changed or didn't change? If there's an agenda and a written out series of notes on the meeting, what can you do the next week to verify?
Look back on your notes.
Look back at the previous week and say, did we do this? We do this in our level 10 meeting with our leaders. We all get assigned tasks, and then the next week we say, did you do it or did you not do it? That's how we get out of having the meetings where it's like, oh, we still have this problem. We still have this problem. There's another ancillary benefit, Cade. Do you want to be in more meetings or less meetings?
Less.
If there is a written out purpose for the meeting, a scheduled time that's been thought out and that can be revised if it becomes obsolete, and an agenda, does Cade have to be there?
Not always.
The team knows what to talk about, when to meet, and what they're trying to solve? Does Cade need to be involved in every single aspect of the business?
Ideally not. Ideally, no. In practice, you can't, very often than not, you can't start there right away.
No. But with practice, if Cade wants to take a week off of work, can he hand the responsibility of running the meeting off to somebody else because it's at the same time for the same duration? The purpose is there, right? And this is a big part. You have to audit these meetings. You can't set it and forget it. That's what I was talking about, legacy meetings. You have to always check, is this still helping? But at that point, can you tell a team member, this is your responsibility to run this meeting? And if you're gone for a week, you know that still happened?
You should be able to, yes.
God, you have so little faith. You have so little faith. But this is an important thing, dude. Like, if you
100%,
if you wing your meetings every week, then of course when you're gone, the meeting's not going to happen because you're the one winging it. If there's an agenda, there is a specific, this is what we do in this order. Guess what? If you have a rental meeting and you don't want to be in the rentals anymore and you've created the processes for the team to run it, do you need to manage your team every meeting?
No.
This is how you get out of meetings. You make the purpose extremely clear. You set a realistic amount of time and frequency, and you give them the agenda. This is what I need you to accomplish and document and send to me. Guess what? Now your meeting's an email. You're welcome. All right, step 4. What's the fourth question?
I don't know, but you're going to tell me.
Actually, you answered it on the last question.
Again? Oh, action items?
What's the outcome?
Yeah, outcome.
Yeah, exactly. What happens from this meeting, right? So there's 2 parts to this. What do we need to do from this meeting and what happened in the meeting, right? How do we get that resolved? How do we make sure that happens? How do we make sure every week we know what the outcomes of the meeting are, both what happened in the meeting and what has to happen between now and the next meeting?
Record the meeting.
Yeah. Put it in the agenda and make sure that you're filling it out. So you have a section, right? For our big level 10 meeting, it's, problem solving. And we're documenting what problems we're solving. And then what do we often have to do?
Assign the to-dos.
Delegate to-dos out to team members. And then the next week, did you do those to-dos? right? It all becomes pretty self-explanatory, right? The outcome of the meeting should align with the desired end state, right? So if the Pulse meeting is to create culture and to create community and to raise morale, if it's not creating that outcome, what needs to change?
Everything would need to change. If you're not getting your desired outcome, you need to do a temperature check on, is the purpose of the meeting still there? Is the time and the frequency still in alignment? And is the desired outcome still the desired outcome we're wanting to achieve? You have to go back and, like you were saying, you have to continuously be auditing these meetings.
Exactly, dude. So you need to be paying attention. Like if the Pulse meeting isn't bringing those things to you, we need to ask the team, is it bringing it to them? And if it's not bringing it to them, then we need to change the agenda.
Yep.
Maybe we're focusing on the wrong stuff. Maybe we
Exactly
need a 15-minute karaoke session every morning. I don't know. I'm just throwing out an idea.
Yeah, no.
This is where that idea of like, how do we make sure that meetings are not dreaded? They're looked forward to because they create productivity, not reduce productivity. Like that's the biggest thing. So what are we trying to accomplish? How often and how long do we need to meet? What's the agenda of the meeting? And what are the outcomes if we do this, right? So our meeting, if you and I meet on Wednesdays and we go through our rentals, our podcast, and Pinnacle, the outcomes we should be looking for will be the rentals are performing at a certain amount, right? The podcast is planned for. We're not winging it, right? And the problems in Pinnacle are not remaining the same problems. They are turning over because in a business, there will always be problems, but it becomes an issue when it's the same problems over and over. The last question is probably the one that I struggle with sometimes the most, which is what's the measurement of success? So, for example, I have a meeting every week with each of my team members. The desired end state is to create clarity, set clear expectations, and provide an avenue for support. The failure or success measurable has to go back to their conversion rates. If their conversion ratios are not getting better, then is that meeting doing what it's supposed to do? Right? That's the question. Yeah. Like if I'm dedicating an hour with a team member every week to get clarity with them, to set clear expectations for the week, and to provide support, whether that's training, venting, whatever that is, but they're not getting better, am I wasting an hour or am I investing an hour?
Oh, I like that.
And
is
so
it an hour wasted or an hour invested?
And this is the part where I start looking at meetings and I'm like, dude, we meet on this X amount, but the result never changes. So unless there's something I'm missing, why are we wasting the hour? Versus my one-on-ones with Jason, which I can admit, they really don't have a written out desired end state. They don't have an agenda, but they do have how often and how frequent, and it doesn't have a success or failure. But what I will say is, if I were to write it all out, it's to increase productivity of the sales team. And if you look at 2 years ago to today, that's worked. But we haven't made it measurable and easy to see. The same way that we track like the conversion rate on everything else. If it matters, it gets measured, right?
That's exactly right.
All of this is really important. And I think this is one of those things that, like, as a manager, it's probably the thing I dread the most. I truly dread meetings the most. But I think with proper implementation of these questions, for every meeting, the meetings have gotten better.
Out of the percentage of the meetings that you do have, knowing what we've just talked about today, how would you grade your meetings that you're a part of in terms of it's following this, you're either excited or not dreading the meeting versus you are dreading the meeting. You can't see the clear vision of the 5 steps we outlined. If you gave it a letter grade or a percentage out of 100, where do you think you'd lie?
Like for all of them, or go through them individually?
All of them. No, just all of them as a whole.
I would grade them at like a 6. You're on the right path. What's the next question? How do you take it from a 6 to a 7?
6 to a 10.
This is the stuff that like is getting ingrained into my head.
Yeah.
Okay, so what takes it from a 6 to a 7? Answering these 5 questions. And then next week, did you answer these 5 questions for all of your meetings? Why not? Right? If I answer all those questions and I don't give it a 7, then okay. Now what do you think takes it from a 6 to a 7? This is the whole concept of Kaizen, our core value. We're not asking to go from a 6 to a 10. We're asking to try to get 1% better every day, right?
Every day.
And so my big thing would be like, you and I really would want to sit down and say, what is the true purpose of each of our meetings with our team? And by the way, this isn't manager down. This is a conversation with the person in the meeting. That's a question that like I think should be added to these 5. Who needs to be there?
Yeah, exactly right.
I've been in plenty of meetings where I'm like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Right? And I bet our team has felt that way.
Yeah.
And so that's where we need to make sure that we're auditing the meetings that we're having with the team. And when you go and you look at the number of meetings on each of our team members' calendars, if there's a 40-hour work week and there's 15 hours of meetings, they're really only working 25 hours. So you can't expect a 40-hour of productive work result. The meetings should help make the 25 hours more efficient. And at some point, guess what happens? When you're auditing these meetings, you start looking and you say, do we really need to have this meeting anymore? Okay, if we don't, then let's drop it and give yourself time back.
Yep.
So
no,
I think this is the process that like every person in a management role or in a higher level role where you're not the person necessarily doing the tasks, your job is to help them, needs to go through these questions with the team to make sure that, one, you're meeting about the right stuff, you're tracking it, and you're keeping track of like, is this still important? Is it still getting me closer to the end goal of making more money? If it is, great, keep doing it. If it's no longer doing that, we either need to change the meeting or get rid of the meeting altogether.
There it is, dude. Yeah, I think, final thoughts as we're wrapping up. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with you can't expect the productivity of a 40-hour workweek employee if they're stuck in 15 hours worth of meetings. If you do the internal audit and determine that, hey, those 15 hours worth of meetings have the clear path and each of those 5 things is defined, then you made the exactly right point that then the goal is, how do those meetings increase the amount of productivity and output within those 25 hours remaining outside of the meeting time? That was a light bulb for me. That was really good.
I also think, dude, the concept of wasting an hour versus investing an hour, to me, like, I mean, we just spent all this money on. How much money do you think we're spending on coaching? It's like almost $100,000 a year that we're spending on coaching.
Yeah.
But we don't complain about that because we're investing it. Because what does it do? It brings a return. Look at your time. We always say time is more than money. Look at your time the same way. Am I wasting my time in these meetings? How do I make sure I'm investing my time in these meetings? And to me, the clearest route is going through these questions and then every week starting the meeting with, what is the desired end state? That's how you audit it, is you keep making sure that end state is still accurate, right? Like I even asked you and Jason that the other day. Say, hey, what's the desire? What are we even trying to accomplish in this meeting? Let's make sure we all have the same goal here. We didn't have to go through how long or how often. We had clearly thought of that and like defined it. And then we went through the agenda. What we didn't do was set what the next steps are and the outcomes that need to happen. And we also didn't define the measure of success. But we're one step closer.
Exactly right, dude. Exactly right. I think especially for, dude, this was such a great topic. Great idea coming into this episode with this topic, especially since, you know, our goal, we've redefined kind of our purpose of the hour that we're spending, 45 minutes to an hour with this podcast, that I'm very much hoping this resonates to other business owners who are listening, small to medium size, who have multiple team members, maybe a couple different departments, to really figure out how do you hone in your business and your meetings to get the most productivity, not only out of your team members, but continue to build the culture that's needed and make sure the engine runs as smoothly as it can.
That's all I have today, dude. You may have a master's degree, bro, but I'm the professor, all right?
Thank you, Professor Farrow, for taking us to class today, bro. I thought I was done with this shit, bro.
Hey, you know, sometimes you got to just learn from the wizard, my guy.
That's right, baby. That's right, baby.
All right, dude. Thank you again. Everybody listening, thanks for tuning in. We will see you guys in 2 weeks on the Pursuit of Property podcast. Have a great rest of your, May, June at this point? Enjoy the summer.
That's right. There we go.
See you, everybody.